Hello, guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we've got another month, we've got another dev diary for Prehistoric Kingdom. So this is for January 2026. This is the first one of the year, so there's quite a bit of stuff to get into here, which is really cool. Yeah, I'm quite excited to get stuck into this one, and we missed out one for December, and even though this is a bit more of a longer one, they did have a big holiday, over the New Year's, so of course they're gonna might not have much of the other stuff, but there's still a lot of stuff they want to talk about, especially for the plans for 2026 and 2027. So let's get stuck into that one there. So let's carry on. So we got January 2026. So welcome to the January Development Diary. The team hopes that you all had a safe and happy holiday. This is our first blog post of the year. We'll probably be talking about our plans to outline what you'll see in 2026. There is a lot of reading to do this time, folks, so strap yourselves in. And then you can see here we got this albino acro with some scarring or something like that on it. So let's have a look here. State of development. First off, thank you all for your warm reception to update 16. We are pleased to see how beloved the vivarium animals have become. It's a fun way to fill out the roster, and we have more on the way for full release. In the meantime, our animators have been working hard to add a few more animations to the current vivarium lineup. So let's have a look at these cute little guys. Oh my god, that's a cute little goober. I love him. So cute. I love that little animation of the little Diacodon. So cute. And then we got here the Samasuchus. He's a goofy goober. Playing. Cute. Very, very cute. So there is some stuff still coming to the vivarium. So that includes more movement locations for the Titanoboa, as well as eventually making it compatible with aquatic or amphibious vivariums. We'll have more to show you on that in the future. So hopefully we'll be getting the Titanoboa swimming around. You can see it in there. That'd be really cool. I'd love to create like a semi-aquatic vivarium. I think I actually might do a video on that because I've always wanted to do something like that. Something nice for the Titanoboa. But anyway, let's carry on. Speaking of updates, our final two major releases are coming this year are Update 17 and Update 18. By the end of 2026, all of our major gameplay mechanics will be finished. As we'll explain in the past, these are massive updates and will each take a number of months to complete. At this stage, we're expected to release Update 17 around June if things go smoothly. So full release 1.0. So looking ahead, Prehistoric Kingdom will leave early access next year in 2027, launching with even more animals, content, and some unannounced gameplay aspects. So that'll be interesting as well. As we continue the journey to full release, there are a number of things that'll be improved, added, or polished once 1.0 drops. Two of these aspects will be controller support and improved UI scaling, providing more optimal experience for those playing on the couch, Steam Deck, or who sit further away from their monitor. This is very much a mouse and keyboard game at heart, but there are more ways to play. But having more ways to play is always great. The team has also started preliminary work on the scenarios that will be coming at launch. We can't promise how many of these will be on day one just yet, but we can talk more about the planned experience. So a story campaign. So the story campaign will provide players with a guided onboarding experience as they work to learn the game's mechanics and resolve different perks in need of the help of Nigel and other characters. So a little bit of voice actors, that's quite fun. We don't expect the story itself to be super long, but each level will be designed to let you keep playing and complete additional tasks in order to achieve its gold rank. Missions as well. For more experienced players, missions are self-contained scenarios that sees the player completing objectives after different restrictions and settings, e.g. no terraforming, selective dig sites, can't destroy existing buildings, etc. So I think that's quite cool. Give people challenges. Often that's when you come up with the best parts, I think, when you put challenges on people. And the story campaign's always really cool. One mission may ask you to build a successful park within a tiny area, while another makes you rescuing a failing zoo from bankruptcy, breeding certain species, and improving its infrastructure. And like the story, each mission will have an optional gold rank objective for park managers who want to go all the way. Stay tuned for more information about scenarios and rewards closer to launch. So that's something to look forward to in the future. Update 17, so this is the first public testing branch. Some details may change from now, so that, of course, these are things that change all the time. While combat is undoubtedly the most exciting thing coming to Update 17, we also want to improve the game's core mechanic management or core management experience. So the next 2 months, a PTG, a public testing branch with no combat, will be going live with following adjustments to challenge mode. So a loading bay rework. Let's have a look at this here. So the loading bay is a crucial feature in PK, but the player never really interacts with it. Our issues with the current system can be boiled down to a lack of responsibility. So the current system is entirely passive, infinitely bridging, indefinitely or infinitely bringing in resources and figuring out what the player needs on its own. Unless you delete all the loading bays, there's no failure point, and a lack of input. So due to its automated nature, sometimes a player can be at odds with its decision making, saying I want more medicine, but the game keeps importing plants, for example. So let's start fresh. In Update 17, the players will begin with a basic supply of plants, meat, merch, and meals. Enough to get things running. But beyond that initial shipment, your loading bays will be responsible for you to manage. How will this work? Sorry. Selecting the loading bay will reveal an order sheet where the player can buy a few different resources at a time. Next to each resource, the player can choose how much they need from the increments, so your orders are needed increments. But be careful, your order is limited by 4 slots, as shown on the top menu. So i.e. if you pick 3 increments, it means you don't have one side of something else. You can see here. So you can see you've got all these slots, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've got lots of meals, but you might need to get some of something else. And you got these orders, so this basically makes it, you've got to manage it yourself. Another thing to manage, which is actually quite good. Probably keeps you a bit more hands-on the part. Okay, so once the player is happy, you need to place order button and wait at least 1 month for delivery to arrive. If the player knows they'll need a lot of specific resources, they can choose to repeat a shipment up to 12 times before placing an order. This can be useful for planning ahead, burning cash, or simply letting the loading bay operate by itself for a couple months. This won't last forever though, so be mindful. So you're going to have to manage that. And you can have a look there. So loading bay, order 1 of 3 coming, and then you order. So that's the UI there. Later in the game, players can increase their limited delivery capacity by researching additional trucks, going from a measly 4 slots up the way to a whopping 12. Combine that with repeat shipments, and that's a lot of stuff you got to keep in mind. You can see you got the 3 there for the loading bay, 3,300 kgs by 4, and you've got all these slots, so you can make sure you're ordering all these things, which is quite cool. So to summarize, the loading bay will be manually set, cannot infinitely bring in shipments, and can ship more resources once the researching additional trucks. So it kind of helps as well. Basically, at that point, it will become almost you have to watch it though. So yeah, that's a cool system. Gets you more engaged and actually have to watch what's going on in the park. Another one here is the logistics management view. So to help players figure out what they need from the loading bay, we'll be adding a new logistics tab to the management view. This screen will show how many resources you have park-wide, pointing out what's in storage versus what's needed. So that's quite good as well. So it tells you what you need. So you can see this person here. Let's have a look. Got some plants, got lots of fruit, needs meat and fish, and some meals. And also you'll need all these things. So they do have some things they need. The second screen will also show, a little bit too far. The second screen will also show a quarterly update, quarterly usage breakdown, highlighting exactly which modules generate or consume the most resources. Clicking on the icons will take you directly to the location. So you can see we've got quarterly resource update. So that one's obviously generating the produce in the loading bay, but these are the ones that are getting rid of a lot of food. So that makes sense. Tall feed is probably for sauropods or something. They really go through the food, don't they? Let's carry on. Okay, we've got the guests need rework. So far, guest-related gameplay has never felt particularly clear or rewarding for 3 major reasons. One is super delayed feedback. So guests are individually simulated, which means that to resolve hunger, guests need to be physically buy food and eat it to be satisfied. Since the gameplay values are directly based on the simulation, it can take a long time to improve the state of your park. There's no visual guidance, so due to being based on a simulation, using the management view shows a sea of green, yellow, or red, with guests randomly scattered around it. Uh, while it highlights exactly what each individual guest is feeling, the player cannot make an actionable decision from this. And no impact. So, in order to make the guests' needs less overwhelming, we had to skew the games considered an unhappy or a happy guest. After years of reduction, guests need mostly hover around 90 to 100% and are a meaningful part of gameplay, even if the player neglects them. So, pretty much suffering from Planet Zoo's issues there. But how do we make the simulation better? So, starting in Update 17, the guest gameplay is no longer completely dependent on the simulation. So instead, we only consider guests who have decided I am hungry or I need to find a bathroom, and makes them measure how accessible nearby modules are. So if a guest is somewhat close to or within a satisfaction range of a functioning kiosk or toilet, their needs are counted as met. However, a hungry guest is too far away, they'll begin to detract from your guest's needs and create a negative area. And using the management view, you can see exactly where you could consider building more modules for guests. So try adding restaurants or shopping centres if you need to cover a large area. So bigger areas, you obviously need those kind of things as well. Do keep in mind, though, that even if you add a kiosk, it needs to be stocked and staffed before the nearby guests can be happy, and the heat map updates in real time, so some negative guests may resolve the issues as they move closer to facilities. That's quite cool as well. So you can see, obviously, we got all this sort of wilder guests there. It's more enclosure, but that's still cool. Um, you can see this is a bit of a heat map there, so you can see there's areas where they're not happy, and then, as you can see, it's changing as you put things around the place, so it updates. That's quite cool, actually. Different management views. So welfare percentages and kiosk ranges are not final, so obviously that's something that's going to work as well. So lots of updates and things kind of to tinker around with gameplay. So once staff finish their shift in update 17, they'll begin looking for a new module, the break room. So players want to build these facilities so that staffs have a place to rest. Do not make them too sporadic though, since staff cannot start their break until finding an available break room. If it takes too long to find one, the staff might get upset. If they get too frustrated, they'll quit. Break rooms can only fit so many staff at a time, so be sure to build strategically as the park grows. So yeah, you've got to be careful with that. Staff progression. With this overhaul, so there's staff progression 2.0. With this overhaul, we aim to make staff progression more clear and engaging, moving away from the macro style management currently found in the game, and from a top down view, we'll be condensing the amount of skills levels to put more control back in the hands of the player. Training. So new hires will begin at level 1, an entry level position with a cheaper salary and access to a single perk. Staff will now need to be individually trained up to level 2 and 3, increasing their salary in exchange for additional perks. To help with this process, training is no longer locked behind the research and can be instead be scheduled from the get-go. This allows players to plan ahead, set some staff members the goal of achieving level 3, and wait for them to train up in the background. So it's quite cool. You know, you don't have to go level 3. It's not like a Jurassic World Evolution 2 and 3, where it's just like click, click, click. So there's kind of something you can plan ahead for, which is quite cool. So they do the training themselves. So once staff have finished training, their promotion cannot be undone. You'll need to think about how many you're promoting and consider their increased costs. If you start to struggle, the only way to reduce monthly wages is to fire people and lose their contribution. So that's a bit of a worry there. As you see below, we're making a bunch of UI adjustments to accommodate these changes. This includes a news button for setting their skill, a work zone, and a panel for editing multiple staff members at once. That's quite cool there. As you can see, we do have some things coming around, work zones and stuff like that we'll talk about. And you can see this UI here. So keepers, please feed my sauropod. Nice. That's funny. And we've also got veterinary perks. Not veterinary, like vets. If they've been there a while, you know, get perks. So as a reward for keeping someone employed in the long term, staff will eventually begin to unlock veterinary points. So there are special buffs that only become available once staff have spent enough time in the current level. These perks are not consecutively, so a newbie gets promoted to level 3. They'll still need to achieve veterinary 1 before they can move on to veterinary 2 and 3. So you can see there's kind of over here John Smith, the keeper. So he's got basic perks. So he's a level 1. He's a good cleaner, confident with animals, and will have some medical training level 3. And his perks for the veterinary. So he's been there a good time. Increased cardio, strong arms, and animal magnetism. So I like that one. Animals get happiness, boost from interaction, able to interact with larger animals. So that's quite cool there. I like that one. And then also, last but not least, we've got staff. I'm pretty sure that's last but not least. Yeah, we've got that. And then we've got combat. So we'll start with staff work zones. So yes, after many requests, we're finally adding work zones. So as the name implies, these areas are ways to manage staff assignments and limit where they can wander during downtime. If you played a modern city builder, you'll be pretty familiar with how these work. Simply open the management view, visit work zones, and choose how you like to paint them. You can use the brush to create freeform shapes or opt for a rectangular mode if you want something more structured. So yeah, paint work zone, paint or just make a square, Dino Land, Mel's Domain, nice, funny. So then you can paint them round. Let's have a look at the views there. So just paint it, just like you'd paint on other brushes. There you go. 1, 2, 3. We've got here. What's the next one? So that's a rectangle one. Too easy. That's 3 different work zones right there. Easy money. While staff will prioritize using a break room, storage, or loading bay that's inside the work zone, they will still venture out to pick up resources or rest if they can't find any. This will allow players to create certain zones for specific habitats or shops without worrying about access to their existing supplies. So that's cool. So they will go out and look for supplies if it's not in their direct work area. That's quite good. That's cool. Once you've selected your work zone, you can automatically assign staff by entering a target number for each role. And as long as someone hasn't been manually assigned to another work zone, the game will try to auto-distribute staff when possible. And similarly, unassigning free roaming staff will also provide a helping hand to accept jobs within the work zone. If you prefer total exclusivity, however, this behavior can be toggled off. So you can see we got here unassigned staff, no cashiers, 4 engineers, no keepers, no labourers, no security, and 7 vets. So you can kind of assign them. So you say you want 10 here, so you kind of just let that go through here. That makes sense. There's a little bit more to talk about, but we'll save that for details for the future dev diary. We look forward to hear what you guys think about for looking forward and learning more about these work zones. So that's quite cool. So that's a lot of stuff to go over. Really, really cool that they're trying to add a bit more management into it and not just make it a, build this and just let it set and forget. They're going to make you try and engage with these things a lot more, which is really cool. Anyway, next up, we've got another big thing coming up, Update 17. I know a lot of people are really keen for this. Animal combat or combat preparation. So as expected, the biggest task for Update 17 is animal combat. While we've been busy preparing to start proper prototyping, it's too early to show anything substantial given a holiday break. And as mentioned, this will also not be part of the initial Update 17 public testing branch. But for today's diary, we want to show our visual wounds and scarring shader. So much like diseases, our animals that have experienced combat will show varying levels of damage. As these wounds heal, they'll eventually turn into scars. Their position and rotation is random, so each animal will be unique in that regard. The damage on an animal won't correspond to where they've actually been hit, but considering that we're not a fighting game, we think this is a fine compromise. Showing that an animal's injured is all the more important. So if an animal, if a Spinosaurus slashes a T-Rex, it's not going to have a scar of where it's slashed. It's just going to be a more randomized kind of scarring It's not going to be accurate, but I think this is still a good, important visual shader to help. So warning, if you're a bit squeamish and you don't like seeing injured animals, these images might not be for you. We're considering an option to let players turn off wounds, so if that sounds nice, please let me know. I think that's a good idea. I think we should. I mean, to me, they're not too graphic, but I mean, some people would probably be quite squeamish, so especially for kids playing the game, I think that would be a good idea to make sure there's a toggleable option. But you can see here a T-Rex. It looks like it's got a bit of a scrap. You can see got some scars along it. It's a bit rough. And then we've got a look here. This is some, looks like they've healed on the Coelodonta, so it's a bit rough there. So here are the shaders in action, showing how animals have varying level of damage. We plan to be pretty conservative with its usage so that common scrapes don't resolve in massive wounds. With more development, we also like to add faint blood patches around the animal, but we're happy with the overall effect. So here's kind of a beginning there. Normal Rex, you can see the scars are starting to come around. So these are max wounds, and then it kind of goes down. So it's a shader, you know, a little bit, and then you can see that's healed up. So you can see those scars have healed up. So that's quite interesting there. For mammals and fluffy dinosaurs, deep wounds and scarring, especially noticeable, is the fuzz will fare bald in these areas. So you can see those scars. You can see all the fuzz is gone in those scars. As for the Melanosaura, here we've got one for the woolly rhino. You've got here, you can see that's those bald spots there with the scarring. A fun detail we're actually aiming to include as well, although not quite sure it will be implemented in Update 17, is bloodied mouth for predators. This effect will fade and linger while carnivores are eating or participating in combat. As far as we know, something like this has not been seen in a zoo sim before, so excited to bring it to PK. So yeah, this is a bit of a realistic thing, you know, these animals, you know, hunting things and getting into things like that, they get covered in blood, especially around their face, so that's something that works quite well. I do think the effects could be toned down a little bit, depending, but this is just a rendering test, so of course it's not going to look final. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. We hope to be able to discuss our plans for various behaviours soon, and start showing off more of the combat itself in the coming months. That'll be very interesting. I really want to see how PK will cover combat, because, you know, I know a lot of people like that sort of aspect, and I know there's going to be battle royales and things like that. So I really think it's going to be interesting how that works. Even though it's a zoo game, a lot of people really want that combat, and that's one of the big things everyone wants from Jurassic World Evolution 3 at the moment, is because its combat really hasn't changed at all. And, you know, sauropods can get killed by just about anything. So that'll be interesting to see. But last but certainly not least, looking into the second half of the year, we'll have our final early access update. The major additions for this release will be new staff types, engineer security, breakouts, human death, and the wetland maps. This also will include 3 new wetland species, one of which you're likely to meet right now, so almost like the wetlands pack for Jurassic World Evolution 3, but that's funny. So next species, Britain's very own Spinosaurid will finally re-emerging from the depths. The heavy-clawed theropod is, of course, the none other than Baryonyx, which is a carnivorous dinosaur with an appetite for fish. And I quite like this. I really like the lips on this here. I think that looks quite cool. Looks quite realistic. And like the spikes as well, and the scale detail looks really cool. I'm going to say that's a cool species that'll work out there. But each skin will lean into an alternate integument, so it's not all look like this, to provide options for those who prefer a spiny look, a more classic look, or a more speculative look. So I'm very curious to see what you guys are going to think that see of that. So look forward to them. So that's a great way to finish off today. So yeah, really, really interesting. So let's have a community spotlight. JDB screenshots did this video. I'm not going to play the video, of course, but a really nice video called The Watering Hole. I did watch it. It looks quite good. Next here we've got by Fly Away. We've got Mama Speen and Baby Speen swimming away. Very, very cute. Looks straight out of the Mesozoic. And Baby Dinochirus, a little bit of art by Eret. Looks very, very cute. Even though they've got very much the ugly duckling vibe, I do love them very much. But yeah, really, really cool. So, thank you for reading January's Dev Diary. That's going to be a huge year for Prehistoric Kingdom, but as always, we're up for the challenge. Once again, thank you for your continued support, and if you'd like to see more frequent updates throughout 2026, consider joining our Patreon for sneak peeks and behind-the-scenes info. We'll see you again next month for our February Dev Diary. So yeah, really, really cool. like to see there's a lot more gameplay coming as well, because obviously that's the most important part of the game. You want the gameplay. So interesting updates, and I think it's cool because often, being in a zoo, you often have to manage what you're buying and stuff like that under a budget. So having stuff like that, and to be having actual to manage that budget and manage what you're buying and stuff like that, I think that's really cool and adds to it as well. So yeah, a lot of really cool updates. Cool to see baryonyx come into the game. Like the work zones, that's really cool, and the combat, that's going to be very interesting, especially to see more accurate hunting and things like that. So I think that's going to be very interesting how that comes out. But yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like and subscribe, always remember to get little bell icons to get notified about anything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye bye.